talking about the 1920s. I mean, people. I mean, I mentioned to you before about the guy who started really big time athletics at NYU, Nixon, and you worked as an usher at Ohio Field, I think, didn't you? When you
Well, I was not sure. I did everything. You might say with the with the nice sold tickets, took tickets when we went down to the stadium. We'd take tickets or be watch the gates, see that nobody stole them.
well, the NYU football in the 1920s, you played a couple of maybe two or three early season games up at Ohio Field.
About two games. That's all you played
At Ohio
on the
Field,
field. Yeah,
and they would be like almost warm up games.
that's all. They weren't any great shakes. They were just preliminary games. That's what they were. So
And then you moved into the Yankee Stadium.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we played about three or four big games in the stadium, and which one of them was Fordham, of course.
Right.
Yeah,
That was usually the last one.
yeah.
And in those days, what kind of crowds did you draw?
Oh, we were drawing 40, 50,000 people to
In
the
Yankee Stadium.
stadium, and you only could put about 15 to 20 into Ohio Field as far as the preliminary games.
Where was Ohio Field?
Up in the University Heights, up in the Bronx.
Right. Now you also ran like outdoor track and stuff up there in the spring.
That was the only athletic facilities we had. We didn't even have a gym until when I graduated in '32.
And they built alumni gym.
We just didn't even finish it.
But this was all being done by the Athletic Association.
Yeah.
I mean, which was really like almost independent of the school. I mean, it wasn't.
Well, the finances in those days, as I understand it, was that all of the monies went to improving the breed, you might say, and they cost them a very pretty penny, but not enough to really say that they made a lot of money.
Who was
I know.
running things in those days?
Well, Al Nixon was the head man, and
He was their graduate manager.
that was his title, and he was a man they looked up to as far as any athletic improvements were concerned. And of course, as soon as the football was improved, by the track went along with it, and the basketball, and fencing even got part of the
So he was responsible for all the team.
yeah.
But there was also a business manager, wasn't there? A guy. There's another name I always think.
Well, there was George Sheebler.
Yeah,
who finally became head of the IC4A.
Right, and he was like the PR guy too.
Yes,
also,
he was.
Yeah.
And he also was the one that tutored the ball players after hours.
Yeah, he was a tutor.
So
in the late 1920s, NYU had a great football team.
they had the best.
Famous backfield. You name those backs?
Well, you had Ken Strong. You had Brianti.
Yeah, Frank, 5-yard Brianti.
And you had your little scat backs too, which
one of the guys was the father of a guy who later was a big star at Columbia. Was a famous Columbia quarterback, and was Arthur Henry Roberts.
Oh, well, we had a Roberts in there.
That's you had
Yeah,
Arthur Henry Roberts,
yeah.
right? Archie Roberts.
Archie Roberts.
And we had at Columbia, Arthur James Roberts was his son, Archie Roberts. Played at Columbia in the early '60s, and was also was a quarterback. By that time, his father was a coach up in Massachusetts, Holyoke. Yeah. So NYU, where did NYU play basketball in those days? You didn't have a gym.
Well, they used to play in the barn, as they called it. They used to practice and play some of the games down on the Illinois battleship down in the river, the Hudson River.
Really?
Yes. So that's where they did all of the workouts, really, and that's where they played the games. That's all I can say, because I can't think of any place that they played down on the campus at all.
Well, did you use any of the armories?
We had the armories down 168th Street.
Oh, the 22nd Engineers.
Yeah.
You played basketball at 22nd Engineers?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, I didn't know that. That's okay.
That was where they played all of their big games, you might say, but.
Okay.
So we didn't really start down to the armory. We used to train the track team, and they never played in the game. They played in the game in the armory, but they didn't practice at all down there.
Oh. Okay. You only played the games.
I only played the game. That used to be a source of revenue to the football players. They built putting up the bleachers.
Oh yeah, that's right, in the armory. Sure. Yeah, it's sure you use them as laborers, and they get that's right.
That was the same for anything that went on around the campus had to be built, and
right.
We didn't have any campus really to talk about as far as athletics are concerned.
Right, you had no facilities.
No facilities.
Yeah, except Ohio Field was the only thing.
That was the only, and they had to have the track and anything that had to be played outdoors. Why?
Right, we had a baseball field.
That was a big.
Right, was all there.
And that used to be the. It was there. And we didn't see a gym until '32, and that was only partly a part gym, half of it. I know because I was a student manager and raised a few dollars towards the gym, and one of the outstanding track men at that time was George Spitz and a high jump. But doing 6 foot 6, that was high.
Right. So so you were actually involved in helping to build the alumni gym.
Yeah, I got in my little pinky into all of the anything that went on athletically wise, and I go.
Well, where'd you go to high school?
Vander Childs High
Vander
School
Childs?
in the Bronx.
And so, 28?
I graduated in 32.
Well, no, not from NYU. I was thinking of that.
Oh.
And NYU 32, yeah. And but you were sort of a general assistant and aide de camp up there. You got involved in all these things.
Well, we had a little group really with like Carl Heiberg, who was a track man, and he used to run tickets. Jack Lepre was a manager of the football team, and he also sold the football tickets and took care of all of the needs of the players. So if there was anything in athletic wise, why we'd sort of be part of it.
Uh-huh. So you was Al last one there when you were there?
Yeah, he was. We lost him on the campus.
Yeah, tell us that story.
Well, as I understand, it was that he was at camp and he took trying to save somebody's life, and he lost his own too, and he had a bad arm anyway. He had from football.
So he was trying to rescue someone.
Yeah, he rescued somebody. And you had a fellow by the name of Grant, who was a fighter, a basketball player, and he was all around too. He was along with the Roberts and they NYU. It was just too bad that they lost their players when they did. I mean, they were. We were the outstanding football team in the East.
Oh yes, in the late 20s, early 30s, yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, that the Battle of the Bronx, the game with the Fordham, was a sellout.
All the time.
Yeah, I imagine you had a lot of friends at that time, didn't you? Right around Thanksgiving, you got very popular. People looking for tickets.
No.
No, because you just told them no.
No, we worked these games. That's what the thing was.
Well, no, but you had access to tickets. It was the hottest ticket in town.
Well, it was funny. We didn't. We sold the tickets apart. To tell you, the players got their little bundle, of course, but we as far as we were concerned, we didn't touch the tickets. They had a pretty Al Nixon had a hold on them, along with Carl Heiberg and Jack Lepre. They sold the tickets downtown we sold the tickets downtown in the library, really. That's how we.
You mean Washington Square?
Yeah. Down in the basement.
You must have had some long lines sometimes.
We did. We had them lined up because that time a ticket was very, very popular. And you just didn't you didn't buy one ticket, you bought a dozen tickets. Yeah.
How much were they?
They were, they were student tickets. Why they went for about $1.10, something like that.
What was the most expensive seat at Yankee Stadium in 1931, 32?
I would hate to guess even, Bill.
$2 or $3?
I think I could say $5.
$5. Well, you played Tennessee, I think it was, and 30 or 31 was like a postseason charity game.
Yeah.
Was that a Jimmy Walker thing?
No. That Jimmy Walker's was indoor, the basketball.
Well, that was the triple headers in the Garden.
Right.
That's right. And you guys were involved in that too. Then
Yeah.
That's right. The first triple header was when in 1930.
Yeah, it was the New Year's Day that they had the triple header. It was for raising money for the poor.
Yeah, emergency relief or home relief.
That's what it was. But
Who played in that? Do you remember? Who did you play?
Who did we play? I didn't. I didn't get involved in that. We had all the local, I think, all the local athletic associations or teams involved.
'Cause I know Columbia.
Which was
Manhattan.
Manhattan, Columbia, Fordham, NYU. There was something like 8 teams, and they divided the games.
Right. And you had a pretty good crowd, I gather.
They sold out for the.
Now, at that time, Ned Irish is working for the Evening Telegram or the
Right.
World Telegram. He's a sports writer. Did you know him at that time in
No.
1930?
No.
31? No.
No, my first contact with Ned was when I was working for the AA, NYU AA,
Uh-huh.
and I asked Mr. Nixon if Ned needed anybody to handle any tickets or anything like that to think about me. So I was working at a Christmas in Macy's, and I got a call from Ned. I remember it was that December 4th to come up and see him, and he put me to work right away.
That was in 34.
34.
So Al Nixon actually referred.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, but I was only on a trial basis, really, you might say.
All right. Now at this point, Ned has an office in Rock Center.
He had no. The first one was the Gridiron. It was the Giant owner had his office
Oh,
there.
the Gridiron Club.
Gridiron. That's the Gridiron Club.
Okay. So that was on what,
6th Street.
Yeah, I was going to say it was kind of right in this neighborhood, really. It was just up a few blocks, yeah. 46th Street, right. Right, that's where, yeah, Tim Mara was there.
Tim Mara, that was,
But
Tim Mara didn't have his office there. Tim Mara did, but the son didn't have it.
Right, Jack.
Jack didn't. He had it here in the 33
West 42nd Street. Right. The old Aeolian Hall, which you claim you don't remember. Right? Okay. So Tim Mara has an office, and so Ned was in the Gridiron Club.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had our own private elevator with to get in and out, and
And he was doing PR for the football Giants.
That was another thing I first did was to the press release for the championship game. I put the press book together.
In 34.
Yeah, that's the first time I worked for Ned. See, I didn't work for steady until after the war years, really.
But that's the sneaker game, the famous sneaker game in the Polo Grounds in 1934 when they played the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's.
So you were like a part-time, but you worked part-time more or less all the way through, though, didn't you?
I was part-time, let's put it that way, Bill.
The first college doubleheader is also played right around this time. These things are all going on at once. In other words, the championship game with the football Giants and the college doubleheader is all happening in December of 1934. because the first doubleheader was right after Christmas. It was like December 29th, I think. NYU Notre Dame.
Well, I was 34.
34. Right, that's right.
No, and then it was 36, if I recall. Westminster, that's their big game, still their big game.
That's right. Probably the most famous game they ever played.
Yeah.
Right. But you were there.
No.
You didn't go to it? You didn't watch NYU play Notre Dame?
No.
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 Why not?
Because I wasn't in the basketball picture yet.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, okay. Well, who else was working with Ned in those days?
His wife's brother. I won't bring that in because
Margaret's brother?
Catherine.
Or I'm sorry, Catherine's brother. Catherine.
He was working the side streets with the tickets. And then we had a fellow that worked for the ticket agency, and he also worked for Ned too. I mean, he used distributing the tickets to the various schools. That's where I came in. Really was getting the tickets from the box office and getting them out to the schools.
Right.
And that could be a headache of a job.
Yeah, I bet.
Because the schools were always looking for more tickets, especially NYU. And that balcony, as you know, wasn't anything to...
Was the most comfortable. I think after the war, the Knicks are starting up. Now, did you get involved in that, in the planning for the Knicks, or?
Well, it was a case of the Knicks being formed, but it was Irish and Podesta and myself that were involved with it, getting the tickets, the team together and all. And we had to do a little finagling, getting some of the fellas like you were talking in here about, some of the older players like Sheckman and those fellas. They were all part of the gather. And a fellow by the name of Marty Cohn, who was a good friend of Max Case's. And I think, frankly, the way I looked at it, if Ned didn't come along and take the franchise, why, Case would have.
Right.
He wanted the franchise. So.
Well, there was talk in those days that a lot of these guys who were playing semi-pro ball, like for the Grum and Hellcats and so on, were all going to go to work for Max, and Max, you know.
Well, a lot of them played for Cohn. See, he was their coach and manager, and he was responsible. And if he, as I said, if he hadn't pushed it, I think that he might have gotten it. But there was no place to play in New York except the Garden.
Right. Well, that brings up another problem. I mean, once you have this team, you guys now have to play, 25, 30 games, and even the Garden has no dates.
No, because we always figured the colleges had Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for 3 college basketball dates. Right. And the colleges, Well, I know because I figured out their schedule.
Right.
But
And then you had the hockey a couple of nights a week.
and hockey was on Wednesday and Sunday.
Right. So there weren't enough dates to fit
And
the Knicks
fights and fights for
Fridays, right.
Fridays. So
Well, so how do you solve the problem of where you play the games? I mean, did you go out and look for a place, or Fred, or both of you, or what?
well, we knew what we were looking for, and as far as the only place we played was the 69th Regiment Armory.
Okay.
We built a court right there in the armory with lighting and
Right, and portable seats.
So
That stuff all belonged to the Garden. The Garden owned the setup.
Yeah, they own the lighting and all of that.
Uh-huh. And so you rented the place, really, just for those, 20 games or what?
Well, we rented it, and at the same time we kept the food ourselves. We used to let it out to the other schools. Manhattan played some of their games there, St. Francis, all of those.
St. Francis a long time, yeah.
St. John's. Well, they all played the guy in the armory. So then, of course, it grew, and we no longer needed the armory. We just used the
For the Garden. Well, but the colleges played there even after the Knicks didn't.
Oh, yes.
I mean, St. Francis was playing there up until 65 or something. I mean, Knicks have been out of there 4 or 5 years already. But, I mean, did you make those arrangements? I mean, you let them play there? I mean, Danny Lynch calls up and says, I need, I mean, how does that work, John?
I think Fred Podesta was the one that...
And he was like managing it?
Managing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But were there any other armories that anybody looked at? I mean, did you consider?
Well, of course, they had the Brooklyn, but no, they...
was that the second floor armory?
No, they didn't look for any other places to play except the Garden and the 26th or the 69th Regiment. It was those.
Because that was a pretty good sized armory. That was a big armory.
Yeah, well, it could hold better than 5,000 people with all of the bleachers.
Right, and not only that, it was fairly new for an armory.
It was new because the floor was all brand new. The lighting was all new. It was really built over for a.
Yeah, you guys remodeled.
Remodeling, it's right.
Yeah. What did that cost?
I have no idea, but it cost plenty because of the lighting at the.
For television.
Television and also lighting for the games themselves.
Well, that's right. It was pretty dark. Yeah. It wasn't up to standard. You couldn't play a game there. We were talking before about the 69th Regiment. I always loved the 69th Regiment Armory. Not that it was a good place to work, because it wasn't, but because it was a great place to watch a game. You were on top of the game. You could hear everything. It was terrific. But did you have a separate crew of guys to sell tickets down there, or what? I mean, how did that work? Or did you just take guys out of the box office? I mean, tell me what it's like on the day of a game when we're playing a Saturday night in the 69th Regiment Armory against the Rochester Royals. What happens? What's going on? Who's doing what? I mean, forget about the team. They go and practice, but somebody's doing the locker room, somebody's doing the tickets. I mean, what's happening?
Well, it's where did we get off of this?
Do you take guys and...
No, your ticket takers and ticket sellers and all go with the furnished by the garden. They worked for the garden, really.
So the regular garden crew.
Yeah, the regular crew.
Okay. So you take a couple guys out of the box office and you just send them downtown, and they work the windows.
They work the windows and all. That's but.
Okay. Are these senior guys? I mean, or it doesn't matter?
That doesn't matter, really.
Okay.
But of course, the neophytes really don't like to work the garden because the armory because of it's a late job,
Right.
and you're out of this world, you might say, when you're down in the 69th Regiment.
Right.
So, no, that was the trouble with. Oh, you always had your little incidents with the people going down there. We had the derby down there, the
Roller derby.
the roller derby.
Sure.
Yeah.
The New York Chiefs, Brooklyn Red Devils.
Yeah, don't talk about them, but they did a hell of a business for themselves down there. They could have stayed down there for a long time, but they were a little greedy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and they wanted to move into the garden.
Well, they did too. I mean, they
Well, a couple of years to get
ago
up there.
there. But
We tried reviving them, Muzz Patrick and I had.
Yeah. Oh, you mean you had Muzz? He was a manager of the team, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they told him to do it, but we had to traipse them around. We had to deal with Eddie Shore in Springfield and rent the building, and then we went to Troy and played in the college field house.
Yeah. Well, that was the second bunch of.
Yes, that was the reincarnation of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one was in the 40s and the 50s.
Well, they were real pros at it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
yeah.
That was a tough bunch of people, but
Yeah.
they were.
Jerry Murray.
Yeah.
Tuffy Pursuit.
But they did all right, and if they didn't stretch it, they did. Why, I think that they could have stayed a long time.
Besides the roller derby and the college basketball, did you do anything else in the Armory? Did you ever do boxing down there, wrestling, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I think that was because we had our own contracts with the people in boxing and so forth.
Right.
But no, I can't think of one time that they had any boxing or wrestling. Right. I know they had that. I saw wrestle down there in the 7th Regiment Armory. Was Bill Brank.
Oh yeah.
He wrestled down there. They used to have some, and I'm trying to think of some of the wrestling. They would, and that time they did wrestle. They'd put a handhold on you,
right?
And you could see it get wider and wider and wider. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of the guy. The guy was a wrestler from Dartmouth.
Gus Sonnenberg.
That's the man. He was one
flying tackles.
Tackles.
Yeah. Well, he was the champ. I mean, before the war in the late 30s. But where did they wrestle? Did they wrestle in the garden?
They did, but most of the time it was in because wrestling was not popular like it got to be.
Right. So they wrestled in the armories.
So they wrestled in the armories.
7th Regiment.
7th Regiment was the one, yeah.
Because in those days, a lot of sports happened in the army. See, people don't understand that now. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In the course of this conversation, we've talked about NYU playing basketball games in the 22nd Regiment, the 168th Street Armory. We talked about the Knicks playing basketball in the 69th Regiment on 26th Street. We talked about wrestling in the 7th Regiment Armory. What else is there? I mean, they played in the 7th Regiment. It was the one on Park Avenue, 65th Street. They all played tennis there.
But we didn't have anything to do with tennis.
That was right. That's right. That was the USTA, or at that time USLTA was. That was their indoor tennis. It was in the 7th Regiment Armory. And there were a couple of armies in Brooklyn where they played a lot of basketball. I mean, the 14th Regiment, I think, and the 2nd Corps Armory. Signal Corps was a Signal Corps Armory where St. Francis played sometimes. And that's in my lifetime. But in the time we're talking about, in the 1920s, 30s, when you were a young man, the armories were very busy places.
Well, they were the only places that could accommodate any sort of a crowd.
Right. Right.
And they were kept in their own little niche, really, as far as boxing.
Boxing was fight clubs.
Fight club, mostly for like Ridgewood and
Ridgewood Grove, yeah. St. Nick's.
St. Nick's. That's, but otherwise, you got to rely on the armories and.
They used to play polo.
Well, that was
Armory up on about
92nd,
92nd, 93rd Street, 91st Street, somewhere there.
Yeah.
Squadron A.
Right.
Squadron A Armory. Where they played polo.
And the one out in Brooklyn, they were the only two that played polo.
Right. That's right.
Nobody could say that they saw polo.
Not very often.
No. Well, of course, it was
you saw polo? You went to see polo, didn't you?
No.
You never went to polo? I thought
I was a cavalry man, but I never went.
You were tall in the saddle.
Oh, boy. That's the way it happened. Yeah, you get drafted.
Yeah.
And before you know it, I was sent up into the cavalry.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
What unit?
I was in the 101st Troop C.
Uh-huh.
And they were out of Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Did you go anywhere?
Did I go anywhere? Well, I got out of there because I never rode a horse before. Nobody. No, it's Bill. It's amazing how the Army does it to you. But I was drafted out of the Armory on 34th Street in Park.
Yeah.
Went out to Penn Station, and then was shipped out to. I can't think of the place out in Long Island, but anyway, they shipped from there. They sent us up. They assigned us to the cavalry, and boy, we were really proud because we had the boots and the breeches and it was. Mm-hmm. So that's what I wound up as, and then I wanted to. I knew we went on maneuvers, and I knew we were going to lose the horses, and so I decided I'd see what I could do about getting out. So I went and saw Mr. Irish and at that time they had the fights in the garden of for the Navy and the Army Reserve.
Yeah, relief funds.
Relief
yeah,
fund,
sure.
So I got myself reassigned back into New York, and
Once the war is over, you get out of the service. I mean, what happens then? I mean, is that when you went to work for Ned regularly?
Yeah.
I mean, 46, 45,
46. We Fred and myself and Frank Carriger, we all formed our Ned Irish
team.
So it.
Where was Fred in the service?
He was we lost count. He was in some infantry outfit, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I understood he was in the infantry. Yeah, this one. Well, I'll ask him about that one of these days. But Frank Carriger is a guy that people don't know too much about. I knew Frank, but tell me about Frank. I mean, what was his role in this?
Well, Frank was a secretary, you might say.
Right.
And he handled tickets also, because we interchanged after a while. I went to service, Fred went to service, Frank went to service. So.
But after the war is over, you guys all come back together.
We all came back together.
Right. Frank an NYU guy?
No.
He was also the original clock operator, wasn't he?
No, let's see who. I think Cappy Lane was.
Lane?
Yeah, Cappy Lane.
Oh, might have been. Yeah, okay. And then Carriger and then Feetsy?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Because I know Feetsy came in originally with the 24s. Because Carriger had the big clock at that time, I think. In the 50s, I remember Frank running a clock in the garden when, it was in the center court and that big thing on wheels. You remember there was all the dials where you sat right in the middle there, and because the press room was behind you and the press row went that way. The two tables running, one that way and one that way.
Right.
And because the Times and the Herald Tribune sat right there at the end right next to the beer. What the heck was the guy, the old bike racer was slumped over, Sammy or whatever?
Sammy, yeah.
Yeah, Sammy Watt he was in charge of the beer.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is, Sammy never missed a game.
Oh.
He used to work the Giants on a Sunday, and then there'd be a game, a Knick game in the afternoon,
right.
And he'd hurry back. He'd give up his job up there and come down,
right,
and take over.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he never missed a game.
But
we finally got him on watch. And he was.
But he was. I remember the college games. Joe Sheehan covered for the Times. Used to sit on the end, and Sammy's job was to keep his beer cup full.
Full.
Yeah, because Joe could go through the sun. So he, in a doubleheader, he put away a lot of Budweiser. But the heck was Sammy's last name? I can't.
Oh.
Well, anyway, but when the Knicks start up in '46, so it's actually in the fall of '46, you're using a lot of the college guys. I mean, the crew you had together that was already working was doing 25 or whatever, 26 doubleheaders a year for the colleges. So those guys just picked up and started doing the Knicks essentially, right? I mean,
well, the college fellas, they just worked the press table,
right?
And the funny thing is that today, if I run into any form of ball players, why they come up and say, "We remember you. You took care of our girlfriends."
That's right.
They
You
were
had the
they
section.
were get $2 or $3 a night to cover the games,
Right.
and they said, well, we can always count on having a date with our girlfriends. But that's a hell of a thing when you come to that you go out and the way they remember you is that you gave them $2 or $3.
Right. Yeah, pocket money. Well, but nobody sees all the behind the scenes work. That's the point.
That's
You know, I mean,
all they did took the hats and coats and put them in the Ranger dressing room, and got at the end of the game
the guys you were working with, you used to put together the college basketball schedule when there were a lot of games. I mean, people today can't envision the idea of 25 college doubleheaders. Oh, actually, sometimes you played single games. You played City College, NYU, maybe single game.
yeah.
But basically, you're doing doubleheaders. Now, how does that work? You're dealing with the athletic directors or the graduate managers of the schools, but you're the guy actually putting the schedule together, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you have to set the dates and
it's what you do. You get the colleges and you give them dates. Like St. John's gets dates,
right.
and you get dates.
So you give 8 or 10 dates to pick from or whatever.
Right. And you give them dates. You like you assign dates to these fellows, to the athletic offices,
Uh-huh.
and you do business really. You do business through the athletic director. He's the one that, because is responsible for the.
Right. So you're dealing with Walter McLaughlin or Jim Galloon or whoever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they and then you get their dates. You give them their dates really, and you let them know what dates other teams outside of New York are available for.
Right.
And then you just put it all together really.
But you have some contact with, I mean, for example, you have contact with, let's say NYU is going to open the season and you know they have 2 dates in December. Let's say December 7th, December 14th, or the 8th or 15th, whatever they are. Are you helping them line up Denver and Marquette?
Yes.
So, I mean, you're in touch with those schools also to find out what their availability.
No, I keep in touch and I find out what the schools I have available to them, and then get them to say, we'll play this team, we'll play that team at a time. And it's really as simple as that, because you keep in contact with the home teams and the visiting teams.
What happens, I mean, with a school like Seton Hall? They don't, in those days, they're not regularly playing in the Garden. But if they call up and say to you, I mean, is that what happens? The guy calls up and says, look, I think we're on a good team next year. Can we get a date? I mean, does that happen?
Well, you can discuss them with them, the different teams that.
But I mean, the teams do call you, schools call you, don't they?
No, you usually call them really to find what they're available, and then.
Well, but then, okay. So, but then it really, your job is to keep an eye out to see which teams may be good.
Yes.
Okay, so you're evaluating all of this stuff.
You keep things in order. You have your tournaments.
Right.
You have your Christmas holiday tournaments.
Okay.
And you.
Well, except the holiday festival really just replaced doubleheaders you guys were doing anyway. I mean, you used to run Christmas week doubleheaders. I mean, I remember there were always, the week between Christmas and New Year's, there were always 3 or 4 doubleheaders.
Well, you try to
The holiday festival just took those dates.
Yeah, well, you know what, you keep that schedule really.
Right. Now, how about when the NCAA is playing, where you have both postseason tournaments in a building? How does that work? I mean, how do you? I mean, you know, when the NIT would go one week and then the NCAA the next week. I mean, how do you work that out?
Well, I tell you, that didn't last very long at that NCAA and the NIT.
Well, no, but it was actually several years. I mean, it started as a wartime thing because of travel, but it did last some. I mean, up until 1950.
So.
You know. So, but I mean, you have.
You have the dates, and you assign the dates. That's all I do. I mean, it's not that difficult. You have to.
The NCAA's office is in New York then. Yes.
They were.
At that time.
Yeah.
The time we're talking about 1950.
I don't recall any of those anymore. To tell you the truth, because.
Right.
But they. That is as simple as what you can say is that they are. You find out what they have available, what you have available. You batch them up together, and then you take care of them in every way you can to make a interesting program.
Right.
That's.
Speaking of programs, Bob Kelly was the printer. And he was involved with Ned in some way. I mean,
well, he used to put the program together.
Yeah, he was the publisher and the printer
and everything, and he got all the material together for it.
Yeah. Well, it was also a guy, I think probably before your time, although you might have known him, Chick Halton.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know. Chick was an NYU man.
Yeah. But he was involved in that too. He worked with Kelly, and he was like the middleman between Ned.
Yeah, between the. He really was between the middleman, but Kelly put the print together.
Right. And he was like the editor or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he gathered all the stuff up.
Yeah. And things worked so that everybody had a job.
Right.
Mr. Halton, Ned hated him because he smoked. I think you can recall that.
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, I will tell you that I never smoked in Ned's office, but although in those days, of course, a lot of people did. I mean, not in his office, but a lot of people did.
He didn't smoke.
Right. But, a lot of people did. Here, you want to take a swallow, eh? They, of course, nobody ever turned down the Camel ads, and the Chesterfield ads. We took the money.
You'd walk into Ned's office, and Walton's office was right outside Ned's.
Right.
And boy, you cut it with the smoke with a knife, you know.
Right.
And boy, Ned used to ball the hell out of him.
Yeah, well, he was a chain smoker. I mean, he must have gone through 4 or 5 packs a day. He was unbelievable. But yeah, that was something. Yeah. Did he when he was at NYU? Was he involved with anything like? I mean, he do athletic publicity there or anything like that? I mean,
he played on the NYU basketball team.
Yeah. Yeah, but he that was his claim to fame. I mean, he didn't do publicity or anything.
No.
It was all Sheebler.
What's that?
It was all George Sheebler in those days.
Yeah, George was. As I said, he took care of the NYU players.
Right.
And
tutored them,
Yeah. So.
they talking about Ned. I mean, what you worked for Ned full time over 30 years, probably 30 years.
Well, I started to, after the war was over, I went to work for him permanently. I mean, as far as that was concerned, he 46, and then we had the Knicks, and when I got out of service, he delegated the college basketball program to me, and I worked with them, and also with the Knicks, taking care of all their needs, really.
Right. Well, and even again, I mean, scheduling too.
But Ned, of course, was president of the Garden.
Yes.
During the war. And so when the general came back, Ned became executive vice president and in charge of operations and everything. And it was a funny situation when you came down to it, because Ned was the top man, and he did all of the upstairs brain work, you might say. And I was the business manager, and I scheduled all of the events and kept them and issued the detailed work to.
And the monthly little calendars I used to get in the mail.
Did you?
You bet. I was on that mailing list for years. Yes, sir. And you know what? Better than that, John, I still have the damn things back into the mid-50s, I think at least, when the February, March one was always pink. I remember.
I used to try to do something different so that they stood out.
Well, it may be, but the February, March one was always pink. And they were green, yellow, blue, and pink.
Yeah, I used to try to make them different.
Yeah. When did you start doing those things? Or did you start them, or were they there already?
No, I started because the gal that was the managing, she kept the
books.
The books, well, the details. And
who was that?
Miss Mulaney, Ethel Mulaney.
Ethel Mulaney.
Yeah.
She kept the list of booking.
Yeah.
Before you got out of the service.
Well, I wasn't involved in any of that at the time. I was just in the basketball end of it, really.
Right.
I held about 3 or 4 jobs, really, when you come down to it. But
at least
it was interesting. But
that calendar thing you used to get.
Yeah.
It had the marquee. There was a drawing on the front of the marquee, and it said "Coming Events at Madison Square Garden," and inside was like a whole month. You listed all the events, and I mean, it was printed by Kelly, I guess.
Yeah, it finally came down to somebody in the publicity department handling it, really. But that was all with the details from the press.
Yeah.
Releases.
Yeah. But I mean, when I used to do them, because I did them for years, I used to get from you a sheet for the whole month from your office or from Audrey or whatever in your office.
Yeah.
A list of the events for November or December, whatever month it was. And then I would add in like the other side of the thing with the Knicks and the Rangers or whatever, the games there. We made a separate list of it. It's always the same. And send all that to the printer. Maybe on the back we put something for the ice show or the horse show or the
Something
circus.
special.
Yeah. You know, but when did that start? I mean, how long did that exist?
Got me. Because I started, when I got out of service in 46, I was working with the basketball and all that. Then Mulaney, they let her go, and I became
Like the booking
a
manager.
booking manager.
Right.
So I had the Knicks, the basketball, and the business manager, like that took care of the ice shows and any
Horse show, dog show.
or any other events of the.
Rodeo.
I did keep everything in line. That's what. No, I had quite a few jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think, but
You're dealing with the rodeo. Who do you deal with? Who?
well, they had a rodeo department. Frank Moore.
Right.
Yeah, he handled the rodeo, and that was quite. Well, it lasted, the rodeo, when it was in the garden, for about almost 6 weeks, I say.
Yeah. Yeah. When I started the season, really, like
Right.
you know, in the end of the summer was the rodeo would come. Yeah, and then in the spring you get the circus. They had an office in a building.
Let's see, the circus had, yes, they did.
Sure, downstairs on the 49th Street side. May Lion.
May Lions. That was again.
Yeah.
Sure.
John,
Sure.
that's the greatest name in sports. May Lions works for the circus.
Oh, boy, I never thought of it that way.
I always thought that was great.
Gee,
Tell me about Lester Scott.
the Lester Scott.
Yes,
There was only one Lester Scott.
you bet. Absolutely. Tell me about
Any guy that can take a nosedive off the 8th Avenue subway.
Well, yeah,
I hate to bring it up, but
that was unfortunate. But
Yeah.
well, Lester had a habit of not always being entirely in control of his faculties. So he liked to drink now and again, about every 15 minutes. But he was also, I think, a sports writer at the World Telegram.
yeah, he was.
So then he and Ned worked together. Is that the idea?
Well, he worked for Ned, really. That's
No. I mean at the paper.
not that I know of, man. But I know there's. He worked for Ned when he was down in 9 Rockefeller Plaza.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know he went back that far. So he was the PR guy even before the war. Even though there were no Knicks, I mean, he was.
Not that I know of. I can't say what. But
But when did you first meet Lester Scott?
that I couldn't tell you. I think it was after the war.
Was after the war?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be.
Because Ned moved into the Garden during the war, his
That's
own
right.
office.
Oh, yeah.
And I always wondered. I mean, I worked for Lester. You know, it was
Right,
a part-time
right.
basis, but I because I used to type all that stuff at the courtside, the play-by-play and
Yeah.
everything. But I always wondered how long they had been together because Lester seemingly had worked for Ned forever, but I don't think that's so.
No.
But I had see. I think Chick Halton was there a long time.
Yeah. Well, Chick was there before Ned, I believe.
Yeah, and Lester came later.
Later.
That's what I always thought.
Yeah.
And, but well, Chick actually, I think, I mean, Chick worked for the Garden, I think, or something.
No, he worked for Ned.
He worked for
Yeah,
Ned.
yeah.
When, okay.
Because He had an office over 9 Rock Place.
Oh, did he really? He was at 9 Rock also?
Yeah.
Okay.
And with the Wergeleys, you remember Wergeleys?
Which one?
Well,
Chick?
Chick is
Yeah.
the man.
Yeah, Chick Worley, sure.
Yeah.
Was a fight manager, among other things. He was
Wrestling.
Jack.
Yeah.
Wrestling, yeah, he was in everything.
He was something.
Yeah. Well, he worked for Ned too?
Yeah. He used to do all the releases, send them out. He worked for the wrestling guy as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, who was Charlie Johnson? I think Charlie Johnson.
He was one of them, but there was one
before that. You're asking me about the wrestling guy before Charlie Johnston?
Yeah.
Can't help you.
Yeah.
You got to help me on this. Who did the wrestling promotions? Willie Gilzenberg. I don't know. Actually, Willie Gilzenberg was the guy who did wrestling in Jersey. Who was the wrestling promoter before Charlie Johnston? So they gave Charlie Johnson the thing. You know, he was Jimmy Johnson's brother.
Right.
And who the heck was the wrestling guy before that? Chick Wergeleys worked for him. Yeah, I can believe that.
He did send out all the releases, and he used to get around to delivering all the releases and giving a spiel with them.
Yeah, he was
sell them.
He was like an old-fashioned press agent.
Yeah.
You know, knock on the door. Here's a press release. Here's a picture. You know, and running on Sunday. Yeah. But and he worked for Ned also.
Yeah.
Well, and then because then we inherited his son.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
He's down in Florida.
Yeah, he's down in Florida now, right? But he did the same thing. He was the guy in charge of running off the plates and the envelopes. He did all that also. And then when Jimmy, after Lester died, we hired the guy from the Mirror, Frankie Blauschild.
Yeah.
But Frankie would travel with the Knicks, and somebody had to do the calendars. So they hired Jimmy. They promoted Jimmy, really, from the mailroom into the basketball department.
Yeah.
And he was like the guy in charge of the college and getting out the releases. You know, and he, in turn, would hire somebody else. I mean, I know, that's what we did. We had part-time guys. I was one of them. We had part-time guys in the season. You remember Sheldon Podowski?
No.
You remember Matt Winnick?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Matt's doing very well.
Yes, he's at the NBA now. Yeah. Matt was one of those guys. He was a part-time guy who worked in during the season and wrote the releases because Jimmy Wergeleys couldn't write a letter, let alone a press release. And Bernadette Dunn would cut the stencils. And then it was up to Bob Zerflu to run them off. I mean, we had that whole system. Well, Sheldon Podowski was the guy before Matt Winnick who did the same thing. He eventually got a job as an editor at Sport Magazine. And I used to work for Sheldon. This is back in the 50s now, okay? When we first started to do the play-by-play, I was still a student in college. We first started to do the play-by-play for the college basketball. Those sheets were on ditto sheets in those days because there was no Xerox, didn't exist. But I reported to Sheldon, and Sheldon reported to Lester. Okay, that was how it was at that time. And so but at the time all of this was going on, the wrestling guy I remember was Charlie Johnston.
Well, Charlie was, but before that there was somebody, because Chick used to do the work for him.
Right.
So I wish I could help you out, but I didn't have any much to do. I knew with Charlie Johnson.
All right. How about Dick Donapria? You hear from Dick at all?
Oh, I know he's alive. You talked to him recently. There's only one Dick down the Priya
You bet. Where's he living?
out here in Forest Hill.
Selling Forest Hills?
Yeah, he's still out here.
And Harriet.
Yeah. Oh. Now that was quite. I always loved to work with Dick.
Oh,
He
was the best.
he used to get so mad at me and everything, and he'd ball the shit out of me, and then he'd say, "Well, what do you want?" That's all.
Yeah, and he'd do it too.
Yeah.
Didn't make a difference what it was. But he could get it done. If it was something to do with the building, he'd get it done. He was a magician. Tell you who else was terrific. If you really, really needed something in his line, Eddie Lee.
Yeah. Well, he was money man, really.
Well, no, but you called Eddie and said, "I need a check for $1,000 this afternoon before the banks close because I got to pay the bill posters." Okay, you get it. He would tell you that I don't have time, I can't do it. But when all's said and done,
you got it.
You got it. If you needed it, you'd get it. They were terrific guys, those guys. That was quite a crew.
When you worked with them, and the different events,
Right.
the ice shows and or the Russian circus or something like that. I mean, something I remember going down to Philadelphia with Dick. They had the Russian circus had a definite kind of dirt,
Right.
and we spent the whole day down there trying to mix the dirt together that they would use in the show.
Well, we had dirt. We had dirt. It was our own dirt that we used to store under the West Side Highway.
Oh, that was for the horse show.
Rodeo too, I guess.
No.
No?
Oh, the rodeo, yes, the rodeo and the horse show about this. Although they can be different because there's a different mix in there. There's a lot of stones.
Yes.
And in the rodeo's dirt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was something that people had to see how it worked.
You bet. You bet.
I'll tell you right now, this changeover is something, because they're running on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what the hell?
Well, the best thing about the Garden always was is the ability to make that changeover. I mean, other buildings couldn't do that, John. They really couldn't.
You know, this is that's March. I believe that's April.
Is this April?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got the damn circus in here.
Yeah, it's circus. Well, you get the circus and it's out one afternoon and back in the next morning.
That's right. Yeah, here you have 12 noon circus, 8 p.m. Knicks versus Orlando in the arena. Yeah. And in the theater, Essence Awards at 7:30.
Yeah,
Saturday, you have 11, 3 o'clock, 7:30 circus. In the theater, you have a concert at 8 o'clock. April 6th, daylight saving time begins. 3 circuses, that's easy. I don't care about that. Monday, the Rangers are back. 4:45 prelim. 7:30 p.m. Rangers Flyers. Tuesday, the Knicks. Yeah, I guess the circus moves out. You imagine that, John? The circus is now plays like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And goes away.
Yeah.
We used to have it for 8 or 9.
The show we used to have it. Did you ever?
Happy 86th birthday.
Yeah.
Do you have your birthday party at the Garden?
No.
Well, that's a hell of a thing.
They gave me a watch and
That's terrific.
they sat about 50 people on the floor.
Really?
Yeah.
Anybody you knew?
The funny thing, I wasn't there.
Is that right?
I wasn't on
You
this.
didn't go to the game?
Yeah. They didn't tell me what they were going to.
Is that right? They threw a birthday party for you and didn't tell you?
Yeah.
That's classic. I love it.
We got a good man over there, Sweeney. Have you met Mr. Frank Sweeney? He's with the Knicks.
No, Sweeney doesn't sound familiar. No. I'm more interested in the old guys than the new ones anyway. That's John Ringling North. Well, actually, you remember Walcott Fenner?
No.
Cotton Fenner? Cotton Fenner was like the, I don't know, general manager of PR for the circus years and years ago.
That must have been years ago.
No, it is years ago. But I mean, you're looking at me like, I'm 110. I'm not. I worked with these guys. Cotton Fenner, we're talking about maybe 30 years ago, okay? 35 maybe. Cotton Fenner and I was handling the mailings in those days. I mean, it was my job to supervise the mailings, okay, and to schedule the mailings, the bulk rate mailings. We used to send out with all the flyers and everything, and the little folder calendars, and the reply envelopes for the ticket orders and stuff. Anyhow, make a long story short, Cotton Fenner tells me he's not going to meet my delivery schedule. He's not going to send the circus flyers on time to meet my mailing schedule for the bulk rate mailing. So I said, okay, we'll mail yours separately and charge you the postage. No, you won't. We're Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. You'll mail the thing when we get there and it's your expense. And I said, no, that's not the way it works. Okay, see, you don't understand. We're Madison Square Garden and you're our tenant. Okay, you don't give us orders, we'll give you orders. I gave you 9 months notice, 9 months, and you can't deliver flyers from Houston. They were printed at Gulf States, printing it to Houston. So from Houston in 9 months? I said, sorry, I'm not going to pick up the tab for you being late. But I can't hold the stuff any longer because I've got to take care of these other events. Okay? I've got the dog show flyer coming in. I got to get that out. I can't wait. I got the Knicks to Rangers. We can't wait for you. So we got to mail it. We've got to mail the thing anyway. So anyhow, this big argument erupts. So I finally went upstairs and went into Ned and I said, look, I have a problem with this. I explained to him what the problem was. That I had a mail, but I wasn't going to have the circus flyer. I'm going to have to send it separately. So he said, well, it seems, obviously you should get the circus flyer in time to include in this. I said, well, right. I said, I wrote him a memo 9 months ago. And that's a lot of notice in this industry. You get 9 months, you ought to be able to do, I can deliver something in 9 months without any trouble. I don't care who's printing it. So he says to McGraw, get me Ringling North on the phone. Now, John Ringling North, as you probably know, lived in Italy, okay? Had a villa outside of Rome. But you know John Ringling North.
Sure.
So anyhow, in those days, to place an international call, you had to make a reservation. You had to, you call a phone company and say, I have called a line to Italy, and they would call you back when they had a line to Italy. So anyhow, or England, or anyway, it made difference. So anyway, they call you back, and about an hour later, Clancy, or Eileen Clancy, calls me, says, you better come upstairs. We got the line to Italy. They'll be calling in a couple of minutes. Okay, fine. So I run upstairs. You remember the elevator guy, Clarence Simpson? So anyway, we got upstairs because Clarence said to me, he said, Mr. Shannon, he said, you're going up and down an awful lot today. There's supposed to be something happening. I said, Clarence, don't start any rumors. I'm just trying to keep my job. So anyway, we get in there, and Ned has John Ringling North on the phone. And John Ringling North is irate because it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Stop.
So finally, Ned says to him, listen, John, we got a problem with your man Fenner. Explains to him what the problem is. Now, I cannot hear what Mr. Ringling North is saying, okay? I can only hear what Mr. Irish is saying. So Ned listens for a couple minutes and said, no, that's not the way it's going to be. And they apparently start having an argument. Finally, Mr. Irish says, John, if you want to play that show of yours in a tent in the South Bronx, go ahead. But if you're going to play it in our building, you're going to do things our way or not at all. And hang up the phone. So the next thing I know, I'm not downstairs. 20 minutes. I got Cotton Fenner on the phone. And he's madder than a wet hen. But guess what? He delivered the flyers on time and we made the mail.
Well, when Ned wanted something, he could lay it on the line.
You betcha. That's exactly the point. I mean, Ned was, I always found him to be very fair, but he could be tough too if he wanted to be. I mean, people used to say, he was cold and aloof and all this. I found him very professional.
He was.
Yeah, I mean, I had greatest respect for Ned. He knew more about that business, John, than anybody I ever met.
He had a line to everybody.
And he had a grasp of the business, too. He understood the business. I remember one night we were playing the ice show. I think it was Ice Follies. And the general manager of Ice Follies was a guy named Mike Grillicus. I don't know if you remember Mike Grillicus. But anyway, Mike's swaggering around, while they're putting up the set. Now, this set, it's got to be 300 feet high. I mean, the end balcony is, you just can't see. We used to sell the end balcony on the weekends, or Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Talking about 6 pretty heavy shows, we used to sell the end balcony seats. And we always specified that the sets for the shows had to be low enough that the people could see over them from the end balcony. You couldn't sell the end arena or whatever, or mezz, there wasn't any. But you could sell end balcony, and that's a lot of seats. You got a lot of seats up there. Talking about, maybe 1,200 seats?
Easy.
So, blocked. I'm there because I'm responsible for ice show PR and whatnot, and I'm trying to set up a principal call for the next day because we're going to do photo things with the newsreels in the morning. And I said to Grillicus, I said, wait a minute. I said, the set's too big. Don't worry about it, son. It's none of your business. I said, no. You don't understand. When you pack this garbage up and leave, we're the ones who are left here answering the angry mail and the phone calls from the people. We're permanent here. You're not. You're going to be in Pittsburgh or some damn place, and I'm going to be here dealing with the problem. Don't tell me, son, it ain't my problem, because it is my problem. Well, I'm running this thing and not you, and I don't intend to waste any time discussing it with you. Okay. Fine. Okay. Now, it's about an hour and a half later. It's now almost midnight. Guess who comes in? Who do you think comes walking in to observe the setup?
Mr. I.
That's right. You betcha.
I know. I've been with him.
Mm-hmm. And he walks in, he looks around, he sees me sitting over in the side, because I'm sitting in a side arena seat, one of those folding jobs, just sitting there. And he comes over and he said, how is everything? I said, everything is rotten, Mr. Irish, rotten. He said, I beg your pardon? And I said, look at this thing. Look at this thing. And he looks up. It's a late night, okay? He's not in a good humor especially. But he stopped by just to see how things work. He looks up and he said, "Too big. They got to cut the set." He said, "I suppose you've already told them that." I said, "Yes, sir, I have, twice. And they're not paying any attention to me." He said, "Well, they'll pay attention to me." He went backstage, just walked down to the end, walked toward the Ninth Avenue end. I don't know what he said. To this day, I do not know what he said. But I do know that he walked past me on the way out, and he went like this, and he just kept going, never looked back. And about 2 minutes later, the Carpenters came out from the ice show and started unscrewing the set and taking it down. That's what I know.
Well, he understood those things too.
Sure. He understood that you sell those seats even if you mark them obstructed view or partial view, which we did. You sell, I mean, come on. You're going to have 25 nuns up there, and they're not going to be able to see the show? And what's the point of that? What's the purpose? Tell me about Dick Esau.
Dick Esau, God bless him, he's dead now. The funny thing is, his son was a Marine, and he was over in Vietcong, and Doc,
Yanagisawa?
no, is the other doctor.
Rosine?
No,
Vitti.
Dr.
Police
Vitti, the
Vitti.
Jr.
Yeah, young Tommy Vitti.
Tommy Vitti.
Mm-hmm.
He was over there also at the and
What, in Vietnam?
and
Mm-hmm.
he dove into this foxhole, and he didn't move. He was afraid to move. And finally, he found out he had a buddy in the foxhole was the command officer was his buddy, was Esau's son.
Right.
You've heard that story,
Mm-hmm.
haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell it as well as I liked it because it was
Mm-hmm.
it was quite a
Well, Dick was a cop, though, wasn't
yeah.
New York City.
Dick himself was a policeman.
Yeah.
He was a
Carolyn used to call him Dick Tracy because he looked like Dick Tracy.
and the hat.
Yeah, the hat and square jaw.
These are all old timers that God bless them. They were really good to say they were friends of mine.
Yeah.
Really.
And they were.
We did so many things together. We always stood up for each other